So this same scene as the previous one in oils will just show you how long I've been painting this scene for. I've been painting it a long time. You might notice in this river scene that I use a purple instead of a grey. That's okay, it looks good. But if you put a little bit of raw sienna in your purple, it'll turn grey. And as you progress and you become professional, you'll really know the importance of these greys, because they come from very pale grey in the distance to very dark grey in the foreground. So enjoy this painting, which is the River Upright in oils, and it was painted many years ago. And remember, you can paint it horizontal if you wish.
I've put the colours up here for the coloured painting again, and we're going to start the painting in the usual way. I've already rubbed the white in here for the undercoat for the sky. I've rubbed it 2/3 of the way down. This is a phthalo blue. It's a very strong pigment, so just put a little tiny bit on your finger, rub it into the corners first, and then blend it down into the white. It's a brilliant blue, but as I say, a very strong pigment, so be careful not to put too much colour on. The first mistake people make is to put their undercoat too thick, and the second mistake is to put too much blue on. So be careful of those two mistakes. Again, we'll do our clouds in the usual way. A bit of white on the edge of the finger, round and round and round. You don't have to worry about them too much, because we'll brush them over with a brush. Any moment we can make them move and brush out any mistakes. We're looking for tone here. If I put it too dark, that obviously looks wrong. So as you're doing the clouds, you cross out those dark tones and get rid of them. Just rub them back until you've got about the right tone, about a medium tone of a sky in the clouds. Now I'll brush those clouds over. And now, after watching, you should have realised the mental attitude we adopt when we're painting like this. It's not a worry if something goes wrong. If something goes wrong, we simply change it. Most of the paint we put on is either half of it might be right and half of it be wrong and have to be changed. So don't worry if something goes wrong. We'll just simply cover it up with something else later on. There's our background mountains. I've got them a bit higher than I would have liked, but it doesn't matter. Now that's phthalo blue. No, I'm sorry. That's Tasman blue I've got in there. And with your background mountains, as I say, keep them a pleasant shape. But the darkest mountain is the mountain closest to you. That mountain there is slightly darker than that one, so we'll bring it down in front of that one. And you can move them around. And as I say, you don't worry if you put it on it's a mistake. Just push it around to where you want it, or cover it up with something else. I've lost a lot of my white sky there. I would have liked to have these mountains lower, but it doesn't matter. Now, we're going to put trees on this mountain I'm putting in now. In fact, I'll cross that mountain right out, and we'll make that a treed mountain here, a closer mountain with some foliage on. With the number 8 round brush, we'll pick up some Naples yellow in the usual way on the side of the brush, and here's this dab brush stroke again. It'll give you the little trees on the mountain. What I'm looking for here is the sun shining on this side of the mountain, and therefore shining on the top of the trees. And I'll put this sun shining on the trees all over the mountain, and then I'll cross out where the shade should be, and that'll give us the shadows on the mountain. So I'll hurry along there. This is rather a delicate brush stroke, and it takes a little while to learn it. But if you pick your paint up on one side of the brush, dab the brush perpendicularly into the board, you'll find you'll get that little mushroom shape. And the smaller you make them, the further away your mountain will look. I'll put this little shape all over the mountain here, and then we'll cross out the shadows. And that'll give our mountain a bit more shape. After you gain control of the brush and you can put the paint on where you want it, you will be able to put trees exactly where you want them. You can put a little bit of paddock there and a few trees around it. Of course, this looks much more in perspective when I put in the trees underneath. Dab, 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 dab. That little mushroom shape. Now that mountain isn't a very good shape yet. And if the sun was shining in this direction, we'd have shadow down here. So we touch these parts again with the brush, and it gives you the shadow. It knocks the brightness off the top and tones the Naples yellow down. There we are. That's all right. I don't particularly like this bit of mountain here, so I'll cover it up. We'll bring our trees up underneath there. We'll use the big brush again. This is the purple. Put it on straight, reasonably thick. By straight I mean don't tone it down with any white. Put it straight on like that, and if you want to lighten it up a little bit, maybe to make this look a little bit further away, you can add a bit of white to it. But put the purple on dark, deliberate brush strokes. I didn't have sky underneath there, but if you had the sky underneath there, you could still paint the trees over the top. And that's our undercoat for the background trees. Here we'll use chrome green for the sun shining on them, the chrome green light. And again the dab brush stroke in the sun on the side of the trees. I'll start in the middle and I'll work out this way. It's better to start there and work this way, otherwise you'll cross your brush strokes out as you come back this way. So we start in the middle. Now my hand has taken over making the foliage. All I have to concentrate on is where to put the foliage. And I'm keeping it sloping in, this little mushrooms shaped like umbrellas. And as I'm doing it, I'm toning down this purple. It's obvious it's too dark up there, so as we put the green on, we cross the purple out. That is the purple that's too dark. And again we'll have the sunlight on the wrong side of the trees here, just to keep the picture interesting. Keep your eye drawn into the middle. And the dab brush stroke. All the foliage is done with this brush stroke. It's quite easy to learn actually. And once your hand takes over putting the foliage on, it's easy just to put it where you want it. So practice this brush stroke. You find it's fun, just put the trees where you want them. Well, that's our background trees. Now the undercoat for the water. I'll run the water off this side this time just to be different. I was just looking there to make sure that the big tree will go up here and the water off there, so that's our arrangement made up. Little dab of blue and work it up into the white. Always put the blue at the bottom and work it up into the white. If it's too dark, we can cover it up with grass. And don't spoil that white there. We need as much white as possible in the water, but bring the blue up into it to show it's a reflection of the sky. Now rather than repaint these trees upside down in the water, you can take a bit of colour from the bottom of the tree and just pull it into the water. This is about the bottom third of the tree I'm destroying, and I'm pulling it down into the water to give us a reflection. And that's a quick way of getting a reflection of those trees there. Rub a little colour in here to get the reflection. It's better if I do it with a brush actually. Copy it upside down. And with a big flat brush, reflection again. If you want to go to a lot of trouble, make a very fancy little picture, you can put these little things like wattle in the other side, a little reflection in the water. You can draw them down in the water also. We've missed it there, but it doesn't matter. Now for the bank. Indian yellow and white. Indian yellow is an extremely bright colour, and with the white it comes out a lovely bright colour of golden wheat or sand, you can describe it as. The bank's put on the same as in the brown paintings, just a bright colour along underneath the trees. And it's handy to have a white line along underneath the trees too, gives it a bit of distance. And then underneath the distant bank we have a dark line. I showed you how to load the knife. Just on the side of the knife, put a bit of paint there. and underneath that a white line. Now again, it's important to have the white line horizontal. This makes your water look flat. I like to draw a long straight line like that. If you haven't got enough control over the knife, you can put a white line on by just touching the knife on the water. And this will give you a white line also. Now I'll pick up the Indian yellow and white both on the brush at the same time. I haven't mixed them. I've just put them both on the brush together, and they'll come off the brush as they wish. Sometimes white, sometimes yellow. I'm twisting the brush as I'm doing this crisscross brush stroke. And then we'll move into the browns and purples and reds down here in the foreground. I've picked up a bit of purple, a bit of burnt sienna and a bit of alizarin crimson there. That's a spectrum crimson I'm using today actually. A bit more white up here would look nice. And again, a little fan brush, give us the grass. Well, that's a similar scene to the brown ones, except it's upright. I think the water's flowing off in the other direction here. Quite an easy little coloured scene to do. Pretty little scene. And we're going to put a tree down here now. I'll load the knife like I did with the other paintings. Ready, pick up a piece of brown on one side, and this time I'll pick up white, then a bit of burnt sienna, maybe a bit of this yellow that's there. And that'll give me the different colours for the tree trunk. Now, where to put the tree again? I could come down through here. I don't want to cross any of these intersections if I can help it. And then down through here. We'll do this one first. Like butter, like spreading butter it is. I'll pick up, reload the knife again. Sometimes it takes longer to load the knife than unload the knife. You can go to a lot of trouble and put bits and pieces down the knife where you want them to come off. And whatever you put on the knife is going to come off upside down on there. So here I might even get the butt of the tree there. Looks like it's going to be quite a nice bark effect. And squeeze the knife down as I get near the bottom and squeeze the dark paint off. Well, that could have been better, but it doesn't matter. We'll touch it up. Now, as I'm touching this up, I'm looking down one side of the tree at a time. I'm not trying to do both sides at once. So if you try to adjust one side at a time, you find it easier. That's all right there. That's all right there. And a bit of colour around the bottom here. Then a bit of dark down the bottom of the tree again, otherwise the tree looks like it's hanging in mid-air. And with a small brush, we can pick up as many colours as we want at once and do the little branches. I spoilt that background mountain a lot by putting the tree over it, but I didn't particularly like that mountain, so it doesn't matter. The bark hanging off these trees isn't hard to do. If you see a blob of paint you don't need there, you can put your brush on it and just drop it over and it'll give you a bark hanging off the tree effect. Or you can load the brush to do it. That'll do the tree there now. Want some branches in the background, a bit of foliage on that tree. Each time I wipe the brush before I reload it. It's important that you keep doing that, because if you keep painting without cleaning the brush, it just doesn't work properly. few more little branches. Now the foliage in the top tree, I'm going to load this big round brush again with 3 colours this time. We'll put purple on one side, we'll put the purple on first, then the chrome green, and we'll pick up a bit of this Indian yellow and white that we've got mixed here. And then the dab brush stroke. There we are. That brush has still have a lot of paint on it, but the paint's in the wrong position, so I must clean the brush, pick up new paint exactly the same way, and the same brush stroke again. And again. In this painting I'm getting a crisper effect with my brush strokes. The paint's coming off the brush a bit better and giving me a more crisp foliage look. And down around the bottom of the tree, you can always put a few little flowers by picking up a few colours on the brush and giving that dab brush stroke down around the bottom here. And tidy it up with a fan brush. Tidy up your mistakes. Anything that's the wrong tone, that's standing out too much, cross it out. Maybe a couple of branches that look nice down there, falling off the tree. That'll do. And sign the name again in the corner, scratch it in with the pointed end of the brush. Often I go back and I put a few more branches in the tops of the trees. And there we are. Now we'll have a look at some of these brush strokes we've been doing. Imagine if that was the sky in there. I'm going to put the paint on thick. Now I've been telling you not to do the sky too thick. If I load the brush and try to unload it on this thick sky, we don't get the desired effect. Everything goes muddy and you can't get that crispy look. I'll try it again. This again is if you get your paint too thick, you can't get this crispy look. So then we'll try it with a very thin undercoat. Pick the 2 colours up again. You find you get a much more crisper look. So keep your sky thin, that's quite important. Now this brush stroke, this dab brush stroke, try to get it right once and then you can repeat it. Just simply dab the paint on and that's what you need. Another one, another one. And when you get used to the right amount of pressure to put on the brush and the right angle, then you can practice all over your practice board to get this foliage effect. And if you want a foliage that's not quite so dark in the darker parts, you dab it more than once and it'll take the dark back. So you keep dabbing until you get the tone you want. But the main thing to practice is simply this dab. And when you can put it anywhere you like, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. All you have to think about is where to put it. The fan brush is easy to practice with. I'll show you how to practice with a fan brush. Just rub your palette round so there's a few interesting colours there. Hold your brush almost vertically and dab it on to start with. You'll feel it sticking to the paint and drawing the paint out a little bit. This gives you a grassy effect. And as you come forward, as your foreground comes towards you, the grass will get longer. So practice these brush strokes. Don't try and paint any particular scene. Just get used to using the brush in this fashion. The number 8 round brush is for the little trees on the mountains, and with a little bit of practice you can paint tiny little trees like this. And that again is not a hard brush stroke to learn. Then of course you cross out the trees where the sun's not shining. And you can fiddle around and practice these different brush strokes. The little round brush is loaded with the colour on each side and drawn up and twisted. This is mainly for branches. We use it later for doing cottages. So practice your brush strokes like that, little round brush. Your painting knife, you can have a lot of fun practicing with that. Load it with a few colours and just get used to the dragging the paint off the knife like spreading butter. It's not hard to do. You can try on your practice board all the different ways and try to make a tree, and you'll learn by your mistakes this way. If you see something wrong, then you'll know not to do it next time. It's much easier to practice on your palette here rather than practice on your painting. If you get a painting halfway through, you're likely to spoil it by adding the paint when you don't really need it. So feel around with a painting knife until you can use it like a builder uses his tools.